Welcome to the Real Autism Podcast. Real as in relevant, effective, actionable living strategies and solutions for a better quality of life. Join your host, Alicia Gosha-Page, for some real conversations. Sponsored by J. Cole Autism Coaching.
All right. How you doing today, Shayla?
Hey, Alicia. So glad to be here on your podcast.
So welcome to the Real Autism Podcast, where we are relevant, effective, actionable living solutions. You ready to get into it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am.
Get into it. Let's get into it. So tell us a little bit about Shayla, like what made Shayla tick, and tell us about Diane Loves Living.
Okay, so can't wait to tell you. So I'm Shayla Collins. I have founded Diane Loves Living. Diane Loves Living is a company for intellectual and developmental individuals. Our whole purpose is to access the community and build relationships with people within the community, as well as develop daily and functional living skills within that individual. So I got started, because I know that was a lot, but I got started because my aunt is Diane, and she's my mother's sister. She has a intellectual disability, and I knew at the age of 4 that she was different from other people. She actually lived in a residential facility, and we would go pick her up on holidays, and she would introduce us to the counselors and the different people, her friends that lived there. And so since the age of 4, I kind of knew that I wanted to work with people that had different abilities than myself. And so I just got into it, and the easiest way is to become a special ed teacher or a teacher, and then that's exactly the track I went.
That's awesome. So your why goes deep. It goes to a family relative, which is okay, cool. So, I know you. We have a personal relationship as well, because you are a caregiver for my daughter, Jasmine, who's 22 years old. And I was fortunate, actually, I found you on care.com, which is amazing. And so it's been a good match so far. What advice would you give to caregivers out there like me who are looking for a caregiver? What should they look for?
So that's very important, because you're essentially the first caregiver to your daughter, because your mom. So that comes naturally anyways. But as far as being a caregiver coming outside into the home, it's very important that you establish a relationship, right? So you need a relationship with the parents, because you're definitely going to have to be able to communicate, parent, guardian, whomever is in the home. And then you got to build a rapport with the individual, because you want that individual to trust you and to look at you as a friend, even though you're going to be kind of guiding them a lot more than just a friend, but you still want to have a relationship with them. So I think that's key.
Okay, that's good advice. With Jasmine, for example, you came into a situation. I try to always be pretty direct around what my caregivers are going into. So Jasmine has some behaviors, aggressive behaviors, scratching, biting, all of these things. And I feel like sometimes that could potentially be a turnoff, right, to someone that you're interviewing to be a caregiver. So do you have any advice around how that conversation should go? I mean, should you really be direct? Is it like a probationary period? Like, what are the expectations around sharing information?
That's a really good question, Alicia. And I think it is very hard for families to identify and match well with caregivers, because you want to give them information, but you don't want to give them too much information. And I say that, for example, and I'll bring it back. But coming from the school system, I would get a report, an IEP report, individual education plan for that special needs student. Well, I can read that report and see all the description, all the details that say, as far as behaviors in their report, which very may well be true. However, as a teacher, I would want to see that individual, get my hands on that individual, be in that person's presence before I drew a full conclusion about their behaviors or who that actual individual is. And it's the same thing when it comes to a caregiver. So it's kind of like a balance. As the mother, you do want to let them know for sure what her behaviors are, because you just want to be upfront, because either they want to do it or they don't want to do it. And instead of wasting time coming in, training them, and they see, which you do offer observation anyways, but when it's easy to read something and think it's supposed to be a certain way, but then when you get in the trenches, it's not.
Different.
It's much different. And so I do suggest that you are honest with their abilities or disabilities and just be upfront. It's hard because people used to tell me this all the time. It takes a special person to work with special people.
That's true. That's very true.
And so it's honorable, yeah, but it is not as easy as, well, I guess people know it's not easy, but it's not that easy being a caregiver. So from a mother's perspective or a father or any guardian's perspective, finding another caregiver to come into the home, it's hard. It's tough. So I applaud you, Alicia, because I don't even know how I got here or in your family.
Well, it's mutual. I appreciate you as well. And I will say, from my perspective, right, I think communication is key. I mean, for me, it's setting expectations up front around what you expect and giving that person an opportunity to say, can they deliver? Can you deliver on that? And respecting the fact if they say they can't, or even if they say they can initially. Like you said, when you get into the trenches, a lot of times it looks a whole lot different. And then you might need to be like, wait, we need to revisit this. Because, before I thought you said it would only take 2 weeks to get up to speed. And we know, like, for Jasmine, it took a couple of months. Like, she tries to give you a run for your money. But I think the kids, one, expectations. Two, I think it's doing communication, like communicating. So how are you feeling? What happened today? And not just focusing on the action of what happened, but thinking about, okay, what was the precursor? What was the antecedent? I think is the word we use, right? Meaning, like, what happened before that may have caused this behavior, so we can figure out how to redirect that. So for me, in working with caregivers, it's got to be one team, right? So it's like whatever I do when the caregiver is not there, or vice versa, when the caregiver is there, it's got to be continuity. In my case, I am a divorce, but I co-parent with my ex-husband. So the kids may go in between two households. So they got to make sure that we are doing the same thing in order to achieve. So I'm gonna throw some stuff out there that I call the real nugget. That's a real nugget right there. It's gonna be hard. We're not here to make it seem like it's gonna be easy, because it's not. So moving on to another question around understanding disabilities from your perspective in your business, because you don't just focus on one type of disability, right?
Correct. Right.
Okay. So how do you get to know all the different challenges within one diagnosis, and how do you make sure you're offering the right support? Because if you got a multitude of clients that have different diagnoses, and sometimes with the autism spectrum, they can all be autistic, but what one does is different from the other. So how do you know all the different challenges that come along with that? And how do you make sure you're offering the right service from a Diane Loves Living perspective?
So first, I would definitely say observation. You have to pay attention to the small details. You just have to pay attention, because a lot can transpire within just 30 minutes working with different individuals, neurodivergent individuals. And like you say, I work with not just neurodivergent individuals. I have it's a broad span of disabilities, from Down syndrome to like autistic to just mildly intellectually disabled. So with that being said, they look different. autism itself has different levels as well. So you just have to pay attention to the individual person, because guess what? They're no different than us, right? So if I have a friend and she's going through something, I want to pay attention to what's going on with her. And it's the same thing. They're individuals. They do need some guidance, but they feel, they have emotions. They, want to be social. They feel just like we do. So it's no different. And so you just have to pay attention, because I work with nonverbal individuals a lot of times, and they can't communicate to me what their needs and wants are. So I have to be observant. Also, routine is key. Routine and consistency, because the more that they know their routine and the more that it's consistency throughout the team, as you discussed earlier, they may have a team. They may have 2 or 3 different caregivers plus their parents, or if they're going to a facility or whatever like that. So you have to just pay attention and just know that routine is key and consistency is important.
That's a good point. And then when you observe how they move, how they do things, the routine and consistency, I think you're in a better position also to move into other things, like going out into the community. So I know Diane Loves Living is really big about social skills and getting out in the community and allowing them to talk to people that are considered neurotypical. I mean, and I've observed you and how you interact with Jasmine. So let's talk a little bit about, because, a lot of times family and friends, they think that it is a certain way you must talk. Do I have to sing song? Am I talking too much? Am I talking too little? So how do you communicate like with your clients? Do you do it differently than you would do it from anybody else?
I like to think that they are the same. Okay. In my mind, they are the same. Yes, something is not clicking. Maybe we have to repeat stuff, or maybe you don't understand stuff, or maybe you need help with something. But you're just like me. You feel, you have emotions, you thinking just like I am. So that's how I try to approach my individuals. I talk to them just like I talk to any other individual. I mean, if we're doing something, let's complete the task. I kind of do still have my teacher voice, and sometimes that comes out because I did it for 15 years. So that comes out of me because I'm big on like trying to complete the task, because sometimes they like to get out of the task or whatever. But again, that routine, if it's something that they've done, they can complete the task. If they've seen it before, you modeled it, they've done it before, they can complete the task typically, and they're aware of what's going on. And that brings in less confusion. And you're absolutely right. I love, love, love seeing individuals out in the community, because they are citizens just like we are. Who wants to be kept away in a home? I mean,
exactly.
Some people like that, but no, generally us human beings like to interact with others, and they're no different. And so, yes, being in the community is important. In their local community, they need to know where their library is. They need to know where the grocery store is. They be able to go pick out deodorant, hygiene products that they use. They see it in the home. They know most of the time they're visual learners. So all they have to do is have access to working on those skills. And they need to be in the community, as far as my passion is concerned, in order to continue developing those skills.
And I guess if you think back to a moment with a client where, it might be a client you're like, I don't know if we're going to ever be out in the community. I guess what was the most rewarding thing about getting them out in the community and seeing them engaged like with other people?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I think, honestly, and I probably didn't say that in the beginning, that drives my passion for this field, is to see the growth and the progress in the individuals. And so if I can think of one experience, it would be with Jasmine. We did try to stay in the home when I first started, to build up the skills and the rapport and the appropriate behavior when you're out in the community. And then we finally got there and we were out. We go to the library, we go to the shopping centers. And so that to me is more than enough. Once I see like, okay, if we're leaving out of the store, you know what I mean? And we've been in here for, 10, 15 minutes. And then that was a growth on the time span that we stay in the store. Like all of that to me is just like why I'm even here, why I love working with this population, the growth, the progress.
So you were a teacher for a long time, long to me anyway. And so I guess what would you say are like the differences between being in the classroom versus now you're kind of out and about? I mean, I know one of the things is you get to set your own roadmap, right? Your game plan of how things are gonna move. That makes a big difference. But I guess what do you see as the difference between working in school and now having your own business that serves the neurodiverse community and helping them get out in the community and be social and independent?
In the school system, it's more structured, I guess. They want you to have certain elements to the day, I guess. And yeah, you as a teacher, you write your own lesson plans, you can, but they kind of structure that as well, working with the low incident population of students. But as business owner of Diane Loves Living and just being self-employed, you drive your own schedule, you create new programming. For me, I'm out in the community, so I'm actually learning new people around me in my vicinity, which I live, people with disabilities, and just sharing resources has brought me a lot of joy, and it's different from being in the school setting. And also when I was in the school setting, I was at the middle school level, so I didn't really see high school and what the full transition would look like. And it was like I was in middle school and now I'm out and these adults are like, 22 and up. These individuals are 22 and up. And so it's just like, what are you doing? Like, do you work? Do you have a day program? It's just like, it's really exciting for me because it goes back to the consistency. This is a lifelong type of career. Like you see them grow, you see them progress, you see them. Well, I did. I still work with individuals that I used to teach. And so I've watched them grow. And I think that's just the passion in me of working with individuals with disabilities. But I love the fact that I came from the school setting. It taught me a lot. It taught me I was able to see a variety of disabilities in one setting. And so that's a lot of my skill, a lot of my training and expertise comes from being in that environment. So it's just two different environments.
Okay. That's cool. Something came to mind as you were talking, and now it slipped my mind that I wanted to ask you. Let me think for a second. So what was it about? Maybe it'll come back to me. It escapes me right now, but let's just talk about a little bit more detail about the offerings, because you talked a lot about you deal with the young adult population, right? I think this was my question. And so they're in the transition phase. And, for a lot of, as you get older, the school was almost like the babysitter, if you will, for those hours. And then once you graduate or once you go until, 21, 22, then your life changes. I think people like me automatically think, okay, well, we'll just do a day program. Well, in my situation, that was not the case because Jasmine had some significant behaviors and she had a one-on-one parapro that shadowed her at school. So now you're putting her in an environment with a large population of her community, neurodiverse individuals, but you don't have the staff where she can have that one-on-one. So my position was such that, my plan that I have been saying for the last 4 years had been crushed Because it's like, okay, you can't go to a day program because one, they don't have the budget to go hire somebody else. So now I'm in a position as a caregiver that I have to come up with my own programming in addition to being, working full-time in corporate America and having another child, which is on the spectrum. So I guess from a transition perspective and knowing what you know about individuals who are like 22 years old, what are some things that caregivers can do to prepare for that transition and to make sure that their individuals are going to be stimulated? Because like you said, they can't just sit at home on the sofa. How do you prepare for that?
It goes back to my middle school years because I remember I've worked with different parents and we sit in the IEP meeting and we go over the scripted questions about, what does it look like? And it doesn't hit the parents until they kind of like where you are now or where you were like a year ago, kind of. But I think it starts then. I think just like if, like you said, a neurotypical child, you would want to have plans for them. You want them to go to college. You want them to do a trade school, or you're putting them in different programs. It's the same thing for a neurodivergent individual. You need to be putting them into programs. You need to get them out the house. You need to think beyond them being in your home, or think beyond them being 15 or 16. You have to start thinking just like any other parent would a neurotypical person. You have to think the same way. I mean, what do you want for your individual? And sometimes it's a shock because you don't know what to do and you don't have the resources. So you definitely have to be proactive. It's not something that you could just sit back and, because it's not going away.
Right. So, I mean, I know your company has helped me a lot in trying to identify what the programming looks like just based on the activities that you offer. So talk a little bit about the actual activities that Diane Loves Living does, the types of activities, how frequently you do them. How do people reach you? Because you're an asset to the young adult neurodivergent community, because we don't have many people out there like you. So talk to us a little bit about your activities and what you got going on and how we can find you.
Well, Diane Loves Living is very much expanding, so I'm super excited about that. Currently, I have started a program called the Living Well Society, and the Living Well Society is we want to live well, okay? But in addition to that, we're socializing. We want to be out in the community. And actually, our first event is coming up. It's going to be at a restaurant location that's ran by Glenn. It's called Glenn's Cafe. Glenn has Down syndrome, and his brother works the kitchen. And so that's going to be our first location. And so the whole point is to build camaraderie, build friendship, build on social skills, because of course those are still developing, or we still want to maintain them or build on the skills that they already have. So that's the whole purpose of the Living Well Society. We're going to go bowling. We have a whole calendar of activities listed. We're trying to do events 2 times a month.
Okay.
This is for adults, so it would be typically range from 18 and up. And in addition to that, we're working on it. Now, hopefully, we're going to be at the YMCA in Carl Sanders YMCA off of Morris Mills Road in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to be doing the Fridays from 9:30 to 12:30, just working on, like I said, social skills and daily and functional living skills.
Awesome. So as we close out, I want to ask you, because my goal in doing this podcast, like I said, is to share the Real Autism Podcast, right? Sharing relevant, effective, actionable living strategies and solutions that can help people that hear this conversation. So if you could share one takeaway for our listeners today about supporting the neurodiverse community, what would that be?
It's important just to be a citizen. And that sounds like vague, I know. But when I say that, I'm talking to the point of we're in the community. I have people come say, hey, do y'all need anything? To me, that is the best way that you can help, is just be observant, say hi, be a friend, be a true citizen in the community, and just acknowledging that people are not the same. People have different perspectives, and we are all just doing our best. And to just be a good neighbor.
That's a real nugget right there. Be a good neighbor. Treat people like you would want to be treated, right? Regardless of what their intellectual ability or social skills are. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. So I appreciate you. I want to make sure that people know how to reach you. So if somebody wants to reach you, how should they do that?
You can call me at 404-882-2282. And that's Diane Loves Living directly. And then we just recently got Instagram. So it's Diane Loves Living. I don't even know how you throw the hashtag out there or what.
Just put the @ Diane Loves Living and you will see her. Hit her up in her DM.
Yes.
And your email, what's your email?
It's DianeLovesLiving@gmail.com.
Right. And that's DIANE, loves with an S, living @gmail.com. So, Shayla, I appreciate you for joining and sharing your real perspective on how Diane Loves Living, and not only Diane Loves Living, but you are your brand. So I want to say a personal thank you for supporting my family and all that you do for the neurodiverse community. And let's stay in touch as you continue to expand your business, and I'll invite you back to the Real Autism Podcast.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you so much. This has been great. My first podcast.
Virtual high five. All right. Thank you for joining. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Real Autism Podcast with Alicia Gosha-Page. We'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this episode. J. Cole Autism Coaching, helping caregivers navigate to a better quality of life. AGP Organizational Coaching, helping people develop effective strategies, systems, and solutions to organize information. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, or just visit us at jcoleadvocacy.com.